Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Saturday morning. And we are so glad that you are interested in learning more about the need for affordable housing here in Glen Ellyn. However, first, we wanted to take a moment to reflect on the importance of today. June 19th is Juneteenth, also known as Freedom Day or Emancipation Day. It's the most widely recognized African American celebration of emancipation from slavery. This blending of the day and month marks when Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, and informed the last enslaved people in Texas that the Civil War had actually ended 2 months prior, and slavery had been abolished with the Emancipation Proclamation 2 years earlier. In May of 2021, the Illinois State Senate unanimously approved a bill making Juneteenth a state holiday. And this past week, Governor Pritzker signed this bill on Wednesday, June 16th. And then the following day, Thursday, June 17th, President Biden signed a bill declaring June 19th a federal holiday. So there's a number of different ways that you can celebrate Juneteenth. Some of them are simple. You can wear red like I have on today. You can visit our website at gepl.org, and we have reading lists, one for adults and one for children, where you can learn more about the importance of Juneteenth. And we have put those links to those reading lists in your chat box. Or you can do something like just wish everybody a happy Juneteenth. So happy Juneteenth, everyone. Now, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panel. Our panel are a group of amazing people that have come together to discuss and help you to understand the need for affordable housing in the village of Glen Ellyn. With us today, we have Stephanie Haunitz from Achieving Independence and Mobility Center for Independent Living. We have Clara Hughes from DuPage United. We also have Lindsay Haynes from Full Circle Communities. We have Joyce Hotan from Glen Ellyn League of Women Voters, as well as Dr. Sonia Asvar from ICNA Relief. Sonia Irwin from One Community was a participant in our panel and is unable to join us today. We have Julie Evans, who is a parent advocate for those with intellectual disabilities. We also have Kelly Christensen, who is a trustee with the Village of Glen Ellyn. And we're awaiting Mark Senek, the president of the Village of Glen Ellyn. Has Mark joined us yet?
I don't see him, but Mark, if you're here, just type into the chat and I will help you get to the right place.
And I am Dawn Bussey, the director of the Glen Ellyn Public Library. And the individual who is just speaking, her name is Amy Franco, and she is the Zoom concierge today from a service that we provide here at the library called our Zoom concierge service. She'll be available if you have any difficulties or have any questions, you can put those into chat and Amy will help you out. So now that we've met our panelists, and let's move forward with our program. Take a moment and close your eyes if you would. Picture, what does affordable housing look like to you? What does attainable housing look like? What does transitional housing look like? Now capture that picture in your mind, open your eyes, and let's take a look at some examples of those types of housing in neighboring communities as well as in our own. Here's an example of transitional housing from Glendale Heights. Here's an example of supportive housing from McHenry, Illinois. Here's an example of supportive group housing from Wheaton, Illinois. Here's an example of collaborative community housing in Highwood, Illinois. Here's an example of very low income housing in Elgin, Illinois. And another example of permanent supportive housing in Elgin, Illinois. And these are some other units from that same project of permanent supportive housing, also in Elgin, Illinois. And here's permanent affordable housing in Glen Ellyn. And here's low income housing in Glen Ellyn. And here's another low income housing development in Glen Ellyn. And here's a senior housing development in Glen Ellyn. There are so many different types of housing, and they have so many different names. We took a look at some of those pictures, but what do they mean? Why do they use so many different terms? Why do sometimes we hear attainable and affordable used interchangeably? We're going to ask Clara Hughes from DuPage United to help define some of those and help us to understand the differences between those different types of housing, or are there differences between them? Clara, please explain.
Thank you, Dawn. There are a lot of terms for housing, and I'm going to go through a few of them to help you better understand the landscape for that. So let me start by introducing a newer term, attainable housing. We often use different acronyms and different ways to describe things to replace older, more tired terms. And attainable housing is a term that is designed to be an umbrella term to describe the broad range of housing needs for our neighbors who face housing insecurity, either because of their income level, their family needs, or their intellectual or physical needs. Attainable housing is safe and stable housing for those who are at risk today in today's housing market. Attainable housing fosters diversity and has a positive impact on the economics of a community. New workforce entrants, young families, displaced refugees, and immigrants can move into a community and pursue upward mobility when housing in the community is attainable for them. Older residents and adults with intellectual and physical developmental needs can live and participate actively in a community as they age, when housing in the community is attainable for them. Now, the term affordable housing can be interchangeable with attainable housing, but it does actually have a legislative definition. According to HUD, housing that is affordable when monthly costs, including utilities, do not exceed 30% of an occupant's gross income. Affordable housing also includes subsidized housing. You may have heard of that term. Again, a legislative term. By statute, subsidized housing is now called housing choice. And these vouchers are a federal subsidy for housing that is available to individuals and families of very low income. So there's even definitions of low income. So in reality, these vouchers, though, are hard to come by. In our metropolitan area, just to give you an idea of a family that would be eligible for these housing choice vouchers, a family of 4 that annually earns $46,000 or less is eligible for housing choice vouchers. And then we talked about the term accessible housing. And if we didn't, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, because it's not good enough to have affordable housing or attainable housing. The housing needs to be accessible to services that we take for granted every day. Access to services like public transportation, grocery stores, medical facilities, and schools. So for a housing to be attainable, it has to also be accessible. Accessibility may also include structural requirements that are needed for individuals that have special physical or intellectual developmental needs. Another term, community housing. community housing, the formal definition of that is called community integrated living arrangement. It's a living arrangement for adults 18 years old or older in a group home, a family home, or an apartment where 8 or fewer unrelated individuals with developmental disabilities live under the supervision of a community developmental service agency. Residents receive complete individualized residential habilitation and personal support services under this kind of living arrangement. And then there's supportive housing, and supportive housing is often integrated with other attainable housing so that people are living in a more diverse community. Supportive housing describes housing that has along with it on-site or near-site services that help occupants navigate daily life issues. Support is provided by a trained professional, sometimes referred to as a case manager. And these professionals assist individuals as needed on request, enabling them to live and thrive independently with access to social services, access to public transportation, how to fill out a school application, how to get other services that they might need, how to fill out a job application. All these are examples. Some community housing developers provide their own case management professionals, while others partner with professional support service providers. And then finally, the last type of housing that we saw an example of, transitional housing, is housing that is set up to help transition residents that are temporarily homeless to lift them out of that and into more permanent attainable housing. Temporary homelessness can occur through extended employment or following a severe illness. Temporary transitional housing is also for working people who are earning too little money to afford long-term housing. Robust mentoring and specialized support programs guide those who are temporarily homeless to the next level of safe and stable living. And I hope that helps everyone understand that a little bit more. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It certainly helps me to sort of have a better understanding of what each one of those are. And it sounds like we'd be better off to say what is the need, or understanding the need for attainable housing in Glen Ellyn rather than affordable. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. So it's hard to say exactly how many people in Glen Ellyn are in need of attainable housing. We can look at the 2010 census, because sadly the 2020 census is not available quite yet. And if we look at that, the population of Glen Ellyn was 27,450. The way the census breaks that down, we have seniors that are 65 and over, and there were 4,545. Those under 65 with a disability, according to the census, were 1,109. If we look at some CDC data, we can extrapolate that that would be approximately 334 that have intellectual disabilities, leaving 775 that have physical or mental disabilities. Again, looking at the 2010 census data, if you look at recent graduates, age 22 to 26, you'd have about 840 people. If you look at single parents with children, which actually comes from a statistic from a community study that the village gave me access to, and that says there's 494 single parents with children. And then some refugee data, which came from a Chicago Tribune article from 2017, states that in the years 2007 through 2017, 419 refugees were placed here in Glen Ellyn. In addition to these individuals, you could have veterans that need attainable housing. You could have young adults that have aged out of DCFS. There's a number of different reasons that people may need attainable housing and may want to have it here in Glen Ellyn. Right here, we have over 7,000 individuals. Now, not all of them want to stay here, and not all of them need attainable housing, but I think it's fair to say that a certain percentage of them do. And even if it was half, that would be 3,500 people. But rather than us tell you about those individuals and why they need attainable housing and why they'd like that attainable housing to be here in Glen Ellyn, we've asked for individuals to tell you their stories. And what we did is we gave them some questions, some sort of prompts, and asked them to think about those, and then asked them to share their stories. And we have recorded those on video, and we'd like to show you those now.
My name's Rainey Atchison, and this is my son, Robert Atchison. He is the oldest of 3 boys that my husband and I have. My family moved here, my parents moved here in '69 and built their home here in Glen Ellyn. My dad helped expand the Glen Ellyn Clinic, that's why we moved here. My parents raised 5 of us here, and now I'm raising my 3 boys, my husband and I, here in Glen Ellyn, and we're hoping for Robert to stay in Glen Ellyn in some sort of affordable housing here.
I am Robert Atchison. I am born here in Glen Ellyn, and I've been going to Lincoln for the last 9 years. I've been at Hadley for the last 4 years. In Glenbar South through the transition program for the last couple of years. Oh, I am usually a crew member over at Trader Joe's here in town.
How do you get to work?
By walking. I am looking forward for some housing for the kids with disabilities here in town. I love to walk everywhere. Like walking to work, walking to the library and stuff around here. Our town here in Glen Ellyn is really wonderful and beautiful. We love people in this town. We love every single store here in town, and the rest of the souvenirs.
You don't want to live with your mom and dad forever, correct?
Correct.
So we're looking for some type of housing, affordable housing, that would allow Robert to be independent, fairly independent, but also have some oversight with an adult for several reasons, mostly safety reasons, and wants to be able to live and grow in this community, or continue to, on his own or with buddies that are a lot like him. So
I'm Marcia Bledsoe, and I have lived in Glen Ellyn for about 18 years and 6 years in affordable housing. Well, it means I can live in a safe and well-managed complex. I can live in the same village as my family, which without low-income housing in Glen Ellyn, I couldn't. I can also afford like doctor visits, co-pays, medicine, and when I was driving, money for gas, car insurance, those kind of things, which I couldn't afford before without the housing. Well, everybody in my building benefits from all this, and probably there are people like students and people that have lost their jobs, and with COVID, that they're looking for these kind of safe and well-managed and clean places to live. I did live in a complex where I was paying rent on a fixed income, and it was privately owned before I moved to my permanent housing. Mm-hmm. And the landlord knew I was on a fixed income, and he kept raising my rent and did not make available to me that I could have applied for low-income housing. And safety was an issue there. And also, we don't need a wait list for seniors. I was on a wait list for 2 years. We need to be able to get seniors into these safe, well-managed, clean complexes.
Hi, my name is Christopher Blazine. I'm 39 years old. I have cerebral palsy. The problem with housing for disabled people is that there is none really. If you want to apply for housing, you have to apply through a website, and then you have to wait until they call you. They don't even show you how many houses there are, how many people ahead of you. They don't show you what housing there is. They just sort of say sign up for this list. And then they say sign up for as many of them because it takes a bunch of years, like 5 years, depending on how long the list is. But the reason why we need more disability housing is because people shouldn't have to wait for housing. It would help live independently, go places, do things, because many people have to rely on live with their parents until it's time for a nursing home, or the state basically selects them to live in these housing units, but they don't tell you where in DuPage County you'd be living. If you signed up with the DuPage Housing Authority, they will not tell you where you're living. They will give you a list of options after you get the Section 8 voucher. With the system as it is, they should have a website where people can see the houses that they'd be moving to rather than just sign up into one big list. Because you're kind of like sitting there waiting for them to call and write to you. And when they do write to you, they have you do what's called a group interview. They have you in a group. They tell you, like I did mine during COVID-19 when COVID first started. The DHA said, well, we'll check you in, no problems. They did it via Zoom. You'd be at home. The problem with the Zoom call was that they didn't get to meet you. They didn't get to see who you were, and they were just kind of judging. And all they would do is ask you questions or fill out this form. There was nobody to help you fill out the form or anything. I wish they had a way to do it where it was more individualized. Some people, I'm not sure if they got kicked off the list that way, because what they would do is they'd check you in. They'd be like, yeah, okay, sure. Your name is Chris Blazine, so-and-so. Right. And they act like they didn't care. They'd be like, you're at the housing meeting, we'll send you a voucher in 8 weeks or 4 weeks. You get to keep the housing voucher for a long time, but you have to, if you get kicked off the list though, you have to go back to the bottom of the list again and apply again. Like if I didn't like the options in DuPage and I wanted to move in say Kane County, I would have to apply to the Kane County list. The problem is if you sign up for these housing lists, you wait 5 or 10 years, however long it is, however long the list is. They don't tell you, well, if you sign up for this, you'd be this number on the list. It just pops up. You'd sign up, they give you a number, and then they'll send you an email periodically. And if you don't respond to the email by the date, it's usually a month. But what if you don't have access to email or some other kind of communication? Because some of these people on that list don't have a house, maybe not even email. Maybe they don't have internet access. How do they get housing? Which is another question.
My name is Kim Thomas. I have lived in Glen Ellyn for 2 months. Having affordable housing means belonging to a place, being part of a community. I work in Glen Ellyn. My kids go to school in Glen Ellyn, and it's a great feeling to be a part of this community and to get a chance. And that I think a lot of people just want a chance to have that kind of lifestyle. I think there are all types of people, people with disabilities, people who are in different places in life, elderly people. We all just want to live in a nice place where everybody gets along, where we feel like there's a neighborhood, and a place that has, nice walkability, nice shops, and to be a part of a great community like Glen Ellyn, where it's a lot of good land, and people have nice houses, and everybody wants. I think a lot of people want to have that experience in life. It's the storybook kind of life that people would want to have. I've been here for 2 months just about, and it has been the most rewarding thing that has happened in a long time for me and my family. I have 3 kids, 2 that live with me. We have space. Our neighbors have been wonderful, and we have a pride about where we live. I enjoy watering my flowers and watering the grass. And it's just good to be a part of the neighborhood. Our neighbors have come down and welcomed us, given us gifts. And it makes you feel good, like you truly belong. I haven't run into anybody who I felt, wasn't genuine. Everybody has been genuine. I have a good rapport with the chief of police here, who has welcomed us as well. So, I've been here a lot, but now I feel like we're a part of it, and that's a good feeling. There are quite a few different aspects that go into affordable housing. I think part of it on both sides is for people who are looking for affordable housing to know what that is, what that looks like, what other people who already live in the community, what they are aware of, how they're educated about what it looks like, and to have a pride about where you live. There's good and bad in all situations, but I think most people, if they were given the opportunity, would do well and be a positive part of a community. On the other side, there's a lot of unknowns. A lot of people aren't aware of what kind of programs there are, what type of resources, and so they may be afraid, or they may not want to go through the process of like having the Section 8 or just lower housing, but it doesn't have to be a negative. We can all live together. It can be in homes, it could be in houses, it could be in condos, townhouses, but we can all live together no matter what our income is, and it can still be a great part of the community.
So Robert, Marcia, Chris, and Kim were all responding to a set of questions that we had provided. This final video, provided to us by ICNA Relief, tells the story of one of their clients, whose name is Fakia. Give us a minute while we switch videos.
Sorry.
No worries.
ما هو الإنسان مش بالسنين اللي عنده، بالأيام اللي أنجز فيها وعاشها صح. أنا كنت جاية شنطي من المطار ما شفتهاش، أنا جاية بشنطة إيدي والهدوم اللي أنا لابساها. الدعم كله أخدته صراحة من ICNA Relief.
It's really essential to know that this is not a shelter, it's a program. And so a program has goals, and the basic goal is self-sufficiency. Fakia is a special client. Basically, when she got to the United States, they told her, there's a problem with your visa, you're gonna have to go back. And she said, I can't go back. The detention center was better than her going back to what she left. So it's been an emotional roller coaster for sure. But Fokia, I have to say she's one of my star clients. She has been able to save so much money, literally coming from literally $0. She had nothing to her name. Initially, she had to stay at a hotel because she came out of a detention center. It was COVID. So we had to quarantine her. We had to have her tested. All those things were done. And then she came to our residence. And she's just been awesome.
We have clients that have come in for the food pantry, or refugees who have come to us as clients, and then once they're back on their feet, they become those who serve. They become our pantry manager, or they become our refugee services coordinator. We have Mommyly clients who come to us as moms needing help, and once they're back on their feet, they're the ones who are helping other moms. So it comes full circle, and that's an incredibly humbling experience.
We need to understand as Muslims that we can't be confined to serving our own very specific demographic. We need to be open to serving the general community.
It's amazing. We had a child in our transitional housing. She was just 3 years old, and when she ran to me and hugged me, you cannot describe the feeling. It's all this hard work, all this teamwork, everything worth it for these smiles.
So we've seen there's a wide variety of attainable housing, and there's a very wide variety of individuals who are in need of attainable housing. What we'd like to do now is pose some questions to our panelists and have them answer those. Once we've completed those, we'll open up for questions from the public as well. So let's get started. Question number 1. Is Glen Ellyn a good fit for individuals who need affordable or attainable housing? Who would like to answer that question? Joyce, I see your hand.
I'll be happy to start. First of all, good morning and happy Juneteenth to everyone. Let me begin by saying, on behalf of the Glen Ellyn League of Women Voters and myself, a longtime housing advocate, I really want to thank DuPage United as well as the Glen Ellyn Public Library, Dawn and her staff, for really organizing this incredible panel presentation. Also, thanks to the Zoom audience who's with us this morning, and for all those people who shared their incredible stories a few minutes ago. The League holds the position that the need for affordable housing is indeed an important social issue, and has used that position to advocate here locally, especially to increase that type of housing. With input, the village recently approved 2 affordable housing units in a new development here in town, Glenwood Station. And it's really an honor for me to represent Bridge this morning and to talk about that issue. And I'm also happy to be here with such an incredible panel of advocates. So, is Glen Ellyn a good fit for needing affordable housing? I come as my perspective is being a resident here for over 30 years. And I found that Glen Ellyn indeed is a very caring and welcoming community. For the most part, neighbors really care about each other. They reach out to help other people. And it is a community also of wonderful volunteerism. In my past, I've run Bridge Communities as well as Glen Ellyn Children's Resource Center. And actually those 2 not-for-profits were started by volunteers here in the community and are really fueled by volunteer work as well as donor dollars. And it's just been an incredible spirit of generosity here. Other things of note is that our village has recently passed a resolution proclaiming Glen Ellyn to be a welcoming and inclusive community for all. I don't think that's something that all communities can say. It's also a good fit because recently in our comprehensive planning process, community stakeholders like our businesses, school district personnel, residents voiced the need for housing at a variety of price points, to be located in a variety of places in our community. And they really heard the need of our community in regard to wanting also our seniors to be able to age in place. And lastly, the history shows that Glen Ellyn actually has a good track record in approving several affordable housing projects, especially along Roosevelt Road. When I was on the board of CHAD, which is Community Housing Advocacy and Development, we built a lovely 8-flat at the corner of Pershing and Main. I'm sorry we didn't see a picture of that. Very proud of it. And also some townhouses, which are located on, and an apartment building located on Greenfield. I mean, these really provide accessible workforce housing, especially to those people employed in the retail sector along Roosevelt Road. And lastly, I recently saw a 2020 statistic that said that the percentage of Glen Ellyn renters who were overburdened was 47%. I mean, what they meant by overburdened is that household paid more than 30% of their gross income on housing. This indeed surprised me, but also speaks to the fact that we definitely need affordable housing here in Glen Ellyn. So those are a few reasons why I say yes. Thank you.
Do any of our other panelists have something you'd like to add to that?
I'd like to add to Joyce's comments, and
Sure.
First of all, let me just echo her thanks to both Dawn and everyone on the call for participating. Why I think Glen Ellyn is an appropriate location for affordable housing is because of the features of the village. For instance, from a transportation standpoint, Glen Ellyn has access to both bus and train transportation, as well as centrally located within the DuPage County area, accessible to the highways and roads that would allow people to move about to either their job or to other family members. Glen Ellyn has high quality schools, both at the grade level, the high school level, but then also COD, such that people living in affordable housing units would have access to quality education at all levels. We have a well-developed commercial corridor along Roosevelt Road that would provide access to grocery stores and drugstores from both a walking perspective or by car. We have then also employment opportunities in Glen Ellyn, and that people who are looking for work would be able to find positions either in the village or frankly with the village. The village is experiencing right now, which as I understand it, is widespread across this particular area, which is a labor shortage. And there are a number of positions with the village that we haven't been able to fill because we don't have a sufficient labor pool to provide people who are interested in working in those positions. So all of those things, from my perspective, make Glen Ellyn a very good location for an affordable housing development.
Well, thank you, Mark. Julie, I believe you had your hand up. You had something you wanted to add.
Yes, I did. Thanks, Dawn. And thank you to everyone on the panel and the library for building and presenting the program, and for all the people that are here to learn and contribute their ideas and questions. I'm speaking through the lens of community members with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. And as a parent, and also as a person who listens to other parents and their concerns, and the individuals, as well as just knowing a lot about this topic through research and for 20 years, it's a topic of great interest to me. My son is 21 and will be seeking housing in Glen Ellyn soon. We're working on that intently. The folks, the community members with intellectual and developmental disabilities like Down syndrome or autism or other lifelong intellectual disabilities really have spent their life, building themselves and preparing themselves here in town through their educational experiences, their recreation and social experiences, their religious experiences, and then when they get older, through volunteering and employment. And to have that type of, build up and social capital really is important. It's very hard for them to leave that and start over. So, staying in Glen Ellyn becomes very important to the families so that they can be near their loved ones, and for the individuals that are embraced by the community and have built up this lifetime of knowledge. I feel that Glen Ellyn is really starting to listen to all the multiple groups that need affordable housing and being very collaborative in learning and trying to make this happen. And this is one of the groups that it's really important that they're listened to and that we learn from these families that I represent today, so that we can find housing solutions. There are many solutions. There's no one size fits all. There's just a high need, because we know that this group with intellectual disabilities has not nearly enough housing in Illinois. There's not nearly enough funding for the folks to get the housing in Illinois. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done beyond Glen Ellyn, but whatever we can do here is going to be incredibly helpful so that we can embrace these community members here in our own town.
Well, thank you, Julie. And I think you actually helped us kind of transition to our next question, which is, how would Glen Ellyn benefit from having people like Robert and Marcia and Chris and Tim and Fakia living here and or staying here in cases like your son or Robert? So Joyce, I think you had some thoughts on this question.
I do. When I was the executive director of Bridge Communities, I was an employer in the village. And as Mark said, employment is really a very important piece of our economic engine. And, employers really want to attract the most diverse, best candidates that they can find. And having candidates who actually live close to where they work is a big hiring advantage. And so, we really want to be able to have a variety of housing for, a variety of people. And another big benefit I feel coming from a social work background is that I think that we are truly enriched by having a wide variety of backgrounds coming together as one community. Just having that richness of diverse perspectives can, generate very exciting ideas and spark creativity. Just can help break down those barriers to progress. So to me, that's a very exciting thing. And then lastly, when I was the executive director of Glen Ellyn Children's Resource Center, I really witnessed firsthand what it was, the value in having a school have a diverse population, because Lincoln School at the time had children that came from all parts of the world. And it was a very vibrant community, and that school community experienced an incredible loss when the refugee population there decreased because they needed to go elsewhere to find affordable housing. And lastly, I would just speak to the need to keep our seniors here in our community. I mean, they come with just high degree of skill sets, life experiences, and they're at that point in their life wanting to share it, to mentor, to tutor, to provide an incredible men and women power pro bono to our not-for-profits here in town. So, I think it would be a shame if we, didn't consider, that group of people who really need affordable housing, especially if they're living on their savings or have a fixed income, because indeed, Glen Ellyn has a 36% higher cost of living actually than the national average. So we really need to cut down on housing costs and have a variety of options available. So thank you for listening.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts on that question. Sonia, I do see your hand. I am going to ask Dr. Asvar to go ahead with her comments, and then we'll circle back to you. Dr. Asvar, you had some thoughts you wanted to share on this question.
Hello, everyone. Happy Juneteenth and happy World Refugee Day, which is tomorrow, and June 20th, which happened to be my birthday too. So, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, Don. I live in Glen Ellyn and love to see it flourish. And your question about how would Glen Ellyn benefit by having people like Robert, Marcia, Chris, Kim, and Forkia living here and staying here. So I believe more opportunities become available for people at all income levels. More money is available for spending in Glen Ellyn community, and long-term change can begin to take root. There will be fewer evictions. Affordable housing is directly related to a person's health, and healthier population means a healthier economy for Glen Ellyn. It will create more job opportunities in our community. It will improve the government infrastructure, better opportunities for investing in the future, and then diversity in culture, which has its own benefits. Diverse culture can inspire creativity and it drive innovation. Businesses become more competitive and profitable. Cultural sensitivity, insight, and local knowledge means higher quality and targeted marketing. So these were some thoughts.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with us. Sonia, you had your hand up. You had something you would like to add.
Yes, thank you, Dawn. First of all, again, thanks for organizing this event, and thank you to the library as well as DuPage United. Similar to what Julius had mentioned, this is a very important topic. So I just wanted to add to how Glen Ellyn benefits. I think to be able to give access to the diverse population provides a richness to this community that there's no way to get there without having that accessibility. And one data point that I wanted to share during some of the conversations, we talked about those who work in Glen Ellyn and whether they have access to be able to live here. Those who work in the businesses here at the village, they make this village what it is, right? They make it welcoming, they smile at us, they provide us services. Yet, I think we looked at a data point where the average salary for the village of Glen Ellyn is somewhere like $40,000 per year. So after you pay taxes, and if you're only supposed to pay a third in housing, that's $800 a month. So that is something to bear in mind. So those who are working in Glen Ellyn and making it this wonderful place, sometimes cannot afford to live here. And we are missing out by having them in the community and making it even more richer than it already is. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much. And honestly, I looked up first year teachers in Glen Ellyn, District 81 or 89 and 41 is a starting pay of about $51,000. First year police officers are $63,000. First year librarians are $45,000, and first year public works is $46,000. So to your point, there's work to be done there. President Senek, I see your hand is up. Did you have something you wanted to add to that question?
I do, and all of those are very good points, and I want to try to sort of reduce that to a very real example of what we face in the village and why affordable housing is necessary. In the most recent election, a lot of people talked about economic development and how important it is to continue that process if we want to keep Glen Ellyn, the quality of life in Glen Ellyn high. And economic development, to a large degree, as we've discussed, requires that we have an adequate labor supply to staff the positions in the village and in the businesses that are in the village. By way of example, as I mentioned, in our public works department right now, we are down 5 employees. We are short in the public works area. One of the positions that's currently being advertised, and you can find this on the internet if you Google around enough, is that of a maintenance worker. The starting salary for a maintenance worker in Glen Ellyn is $46,000. If you would then use the formula that we've discussed, which is a third of your gross income, you're getting down into an area where $1,000 to $1,500 is what you would have available to rent, lease an apartment in Glen Ellyn. If we look at the Aver development that was just constructed across from the library, rent in the Aver development is advertised at $3,200 and above. The Apex development that's being constructed on Main Street, the rents in there are $1,500 and above. So it would be a challenge for a person to accept a job with the village as a maintenance worker and to find housing that they could afford in Glen Ellyn. By way of another illustration, I met with members of the police department, and to the point of the starting salary of a police officer in Glen Ellyn. And I asked a very simple question to them: how many police officers live in Glen Ellyn? And the answer was 1, soon to be 0. And I asked the police officers, why is that? They said, it just costs too much money to live here. We can't afford to live in the community that employs us. And so being able to develop a solid labor pool is important for economic development in Glen Ellyn. And affordable housing allows us to do that. It also creates, as I think Dr. Asfar alluded to, when people move in, there is some discretionary spending that they have available, and they will likely spend that in proximity to where they live. So having increasing the labor pool, increasing the population of Glen Ellyn in that regard creates more property tax, more sales tax, and more food and beverage tax as the residents who occupy those units use their discretionary spending to make purchase of food and goods or goods and services in the village. So those two reasons alone, I think, would illustrate why Glen Ellyn would benefit from an affordable housing development. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for adding those thoughts. So let's move on to our next question, and that is, what do we stand to lose as a community through economic segregation? Clara, I believe you had some thoughts on that.
Yes, thank you, Dawn. And before I answer the question, I also want to say, happy Juneteenth to everyone, and thank all of the panel members and Dawn especially for all the coordination of this program. And I want to mention that DuPage United has advocated for attainable housing since its inception in 2003. DU is a group of 28 faith-based and nonprofit institutions. And here in Glen Ellyn, we have several institutions that we represent. ICNA Relief, Faith Lutheran Church, St. Mark's Episcopal Church, First Congregational Church of Glen Ellyn, and there are residents that attend Etz Chaim, one of the founding members of DuPage United, and the various mosques that we have in the surrounding Glen Ellyn area. So we bring a lot of cultural diversity and passion to the attainable housing initiative. The cost to our community for the lack of attainable housing might not be real visible to us who have safe and attainable housing and stable housing here. So while the full cost of poverty might not be seen by us on a daily basis, we've heard from Mark, who's mentioned about the lack of labor. And I want to go into like the more serious aspects and the serious costs for housing insecurity. When a family experiences housing insecurity, they're experiencing other crises as well, such as lack of food, lack of access to routine medical care, lack of access to transportation, and concern for their overall personal safety. Adults who are preoccupied with their survival cannot effectively seek work. Students who don't do well in school don't reach their potential. The added serious physical and emotional stress places a burden on our social safety net programs. Housing insecurity adds to our healthcare costs and has an immediate impact on lost wages for our neighbors who are unable to secure full-time work, and future wages for our students who are not able to achieve their educational goals. The Metropolitan Planning Council is an independent planning and policy organization, and they quantified the impact of immediate and future wage loss in our region, which was very stark for me. And there's a reference to this study that's included in the suggested reading that Dawn had prepared for us. The Metropolitan Planning Council compared large metro regions in the US, and their bottom line was that regions with higher levels of inclusion generate more long-term economic growth, while areas of higher level of economic and housing segregation have slower economic growth and shorter periods of economic growth. So this study, and there's probably a plethora of studies out there, show that when attainable housing is readily available, more opportunities become available for people at all income levels. And Mark, I think you spoke to this issue already. If there's anything else that you want to add to that, I am going to turn it over to you right now.
You know, beyond what I've mentioned in terms of how the village sort of is impacted by the lack of a labor pool, just on the economic side, I suspect that, as I understand it from talking with the local businesses in Glen Ellyn, they're having that same experience where they're having difficulty finding people who will accept the jobs that are available. And I don't think it's, I think it's somewhat intuitive that if you have an opportunity to be employed in two different locations, you will likely pick the location that is closest to where you live. And so trying to attract that labor pool to Glen Ellyn is a big issue. But as you point out, Clara, that's just the economic benefit. And I think what we've, has been illustrated here is the social benefits of affordable housing are certainly as great as the economic benefits to Glen Ellyn. And if we want to continue to really have an opportunity to develop the community and to diversify the community, it is hard. I think was pointed out, we passed a resolution favoring equality, diversity, and inclusiveness. Inclusiveness means the ability for people who want to live in Glen Ellyn to have that opportunity to live in Glen Ellyn. And, we want to give people that opportunity. And given the median prices of homes in Glen Ellyn and some of the rental costs in Glen Ellyn, many people who want to live in Glen Ellyn simply can't afford it. And we lose out as a community for the reasons that have already been discussed when we don't have that diversity in our community. And so I think for all those reasons, continuing to make progress in providing affordable housing is a goal that is in the best interest of all the residents of Glen Ellyn.
Well, thank you all for sharing those benefits of providing attainable housing here in Glen Ellyn. So we're going to go on to this next question, which is, does our current housing stock in Glen Ellyn and other nearby towns fit the needs of individuals like Robert, Marcia, Chris, Kim, Fakia, and others? And a couple of our other panelists are going to speak to that one. Stephanie, I believe you had some thoughts on that.
Sorry, I had a problem with that unmuting. No, a lot of the areas, I'm not quite familiar with your area. I don't live in the DuPage County area, even though we service DuPage, Kane, and Kendall. I can say that just in parts of the county or in parts of the different cities that are out there that make up DuPage, no, there isn't a lot of things out there for those with disabilities, such as, more accessible housing or recreational things for, people with disabilities to do. And I can only speak on those with disabilities because I work with those with disabilities. So yes, we do need more recreational things for people to do out there. We need to have more accessible housing out there. Like Chris was saying too, I wanted to touch on that. Can I speak on that?
Yes, please
Chris
do.
is actually one of my consumers, and great guy, by the way. He did a great job. So Chris, if you're on this panel, I think he is. He did a great job. One of the problems is with DuPage housing is, yes, they do give you where you can actually go in and look to see where you're at placed on the housing list. So one of the things that we are working with DuPage housing, because I actually just had a meeting with them, is more accessible housing for the DuPage area for those who do have disabilities. So it is something that we're working on, but those are the two things that I do see as, things for people to do and more accessible housing. So.
Well, and Stephanie, if I could follow up on that, because I agree, Chris, you did a wonderful job. And I had a lovely conversation with Chris on the phone. And so if you could maybe speak to, because Chris was telling me, he was employed here in Glen Ellyn, but then he couldn't live here any longer. And so he was indeed, part of the workforce here. Could you do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit of that story?
Well, Chris has been trying to, I can't say so much because I don't have a release, but
sure,
to speak on that. But what I can say is that he has been trying to get employment. Not just him, it's a lot of the consumers that we work with on a day-to-day basis who are looking for employment. And I truly feel that sometimes they're overlooked because they do have a disability, because it's either a physical disability, intellectual disability. I have a disability. You can't tell that I have a disability. But, I think that a lot of people with disabilities are overlooked, and that is very shameful to say. So yes, Chris has been trying to gain employment, and he has not been able to successfully, get employment. And I believe a lot of it has to do because of that disability, or there's just not enough jobs out there in the area for those with disabilities.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I believe that we had Joyce. Did you have some comments you wanted to make on that as well?
Not really, although I would like to talk about the barriers as far as not really being able to find something close, to where you live. It's sort of a cautionary tale in that, I remember when I was with Bridge Communities, we had a very valuable staff member, and he was single when he started with us, but then he got married, and of course, he was looking then for a starter house, and he was ready to move to Elburn. And of course, we didn't want to lose him. And so we worked really hard to be able to find something locally. But also recently, I was in Palo Alto, California with my husband. We were there for his Stanford reunion, and we were going out to dinner with some friends, and we were driving down their main street. And I noticed this really strange phenomenon, which was campers and vans parked just side by side along the side of their main streets for blocks and blocks. And so I asked, my friends, what is this? And they said, well, these are workers who work in town, but they can't find affordable housing. So the town of Palo Alto lets them sleep during the week in their vans on the streets. And then on the weekends, they go to their homes, which are, located long distances away, because that's the only place they can afford them. So anyway, to me, it was, this incredible wake-up call about what indeed can happen when we really don't provide for the needs of our people in our communities who need affordable housing.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that story. Did any of our other panelists have anything you wanted to add to that question regarding current housing stock in Glen Ellyn?
I might be a little off topic, but I do want to address the housing stock here in Glen Ellyn. The availability of housing, affordable housing throughout DuPage County is across the board, from communities that have as little as only about 2 or 3% of their housing stock, which is as rated as affordable housing, to some such as Carroll Stream, which is 1/3 of their housing stock is rated as affordable housing. One of the things, though, I think that is the challenge is not only the structures that may or may not be available, but the information that people struggle to find. So I recently was communicating with somebody who suddenly had a health crisis and lost their job. And when you're in a situation like that, you can panic, right? Really easily. And if it's something that you're wholly unfamiliar with, you don't know that CHAD is in the area, that ICNA can help, that Hope Fair Housing may be able to help, that the DuPage County Housing Authority has resources that are available, or that Milton Township has available resources. So I think part of our challenge is not only in the fact that we need structures that are available for those who have disabilities, for age in place, for low income, workforce housing, et cetera. But we also need to find ways that we can communicate those available resources so people do know that they have places to turn to when they're in trouble.
I think that's a great point, and that's something that we here at the library might be able to start to at least gather some of that information and make that available in some way. Dr. Asvar, you had something you'd like to add.
Yes, Don, and I would like to just briefly discuss, we all know, I think all of us are sitting in our houses right now, and housing is more than physical shelter. It provides sense of belonging, a community to call home, and a safe place to grow and to thrive. And so we not only benefit ourselves, but ultimately give back to the community. But yet right now, millions of Americans lack access to safe, stable, and affordable housing. And according to National Low Income Housing Coalition, I was reading that and making notes. There is not enough affordable housing supply to meet demand. In United States, it needs minimum of 7.2 million more affordable housing units, and potentially as many as 12 million units. Only 35 out of every 100 extremely low income families have access to affordable housing. And these numbers do not even include more than 500,000 Americans who are homeless. In DuPage Housing Authority, Section 8 housing choice vouchers waiting list is currently closed. It was last opened for 1 day in March in 2019, and before that for 1 day in June 2016, and before that in 2010. And there is no notice of when this waiting list will reopen. 1,500 applicants were placed on the waiting list by the date and time, and the application was received by order of preferences. So that's the situation.
Those are some sobering statistics. Thank you for sharing those. Our next question is, does Glen Ellyn currently have a plan for affordable housing? Do we have incentives? Do we provide regulations? Do we have a housing commission? Is there senior housing assistance specifically from the village? What can Trustee Christensen and President Senek, let's start with Trustee Christensen. I believe you wanted to share some thoughts with us on this one.
Yes, thanks, Don. The answer is that we're working on creating an affordable housing plan, including the creation of an affordable housing task force. We're also establishing or reestablishing a commission that had gone defunct since around the 70s. The Community Relations Commissions. Those are being formed now. And among the first steps of the Community Relations Commission will be to update that original ordinance passed in, like I say, the mid-70s to reflect today's and tomorrow's society. So we will be including affordable housing in the mission of the Community Relations Commission. And we will be including affordable housing in the village's comprehensive plan, which is in the works. I do want to note that by state statute and legislation, the village of Glen Ellyn is required to have no less than 10% of total year-round affordable housing units. We do meet this threshold. According to the December 2019 analysis of impediments to fair housing in the DuPage County area, a very governmental title. We fall in roughly about the top third of neighboring and similar communities when it comes to the availability of affordable housing. Glen Ellyn, at our last statistics, we have 15.9% of our housing is considered affordable housing total year round. And like I say, compared to some of the other villages, we're doing okay, but certainly we could do better. There are some communities that have less than 5% of their housing considered to be affordable housing: Oak Brook, Hinsdale, Burr Ridge, and some that have much more than Glen Ellyn. Downers Grove, Lombard, Carroll Stream, we're looking in the neighborhood of 20 to 30% affordable housing stock. So we can do better, and we will be doing better as soon as we get our Affordable Housing Task Force and our Community Relations Commission focused on these areas as we move forward.
Well, thank you. President Senek, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I do, and I want to just thank Trustee Christensen for providing that background, because all of that, I think, reflects the village's commitment to improving the affordable housing stock in the community. And while, as Trustee Christensen points out, we do comply with the state statute with respect to affordable housing, the percentage of affordable housing, I think both myself and the village board sees that as the floor, not the ceiling. Simply because we've achieved that compliance, that doesn't mean that we cannot continue to do more to address the affordable housing crisis for all the reasons that we've already talked about. In that respect, not only are we doing the things that Trustee Christensen suggested, but we are actively engaged in a process now to bring an affordable housing development to Glen Ellyn. And I see Ms. Haynes from Full Circle Development is on the call, and her organization is working with the village currently to make that a reality. And we are quite a ways down the road with this, in the sense that we've had a number of discussions. We have some sites that are under consideration. We're actively out trying to acquire the site that will ultimately be selected for this. And we're hopeful that once we do that, in conjunction with Full Circle Development and DuPage United, that an affordable housing development will become a reality in the village within the next several years. And so I want to just really thank Ms. Haynes and her organization for working with the village to make this a reality.
I want to tag on to that if I can too. We saw some numbers earlier that indicate that, there's more than 7,000 people right here in Glen Ellyn who could use some sort of attainable housing. That's, maybe a third of our current population. And then we also heard, that our average, for instance, our average village staff salary is about $39,650. And we heard that 45% of the folks who are working here are struggling with rent here in town. And we also heard in one of our videos, Kim say that we can all live together. And Glen Ellyn allows for a storybook kind of life. And I strongly believe, and I agree with President Senek and that our fellow trustees are really keen on following through on these initiatives. And I have to thank Dawn, especially for launching our DEI initiatives, and because this is very much an offshoot of that. And so it's important that we're having these conversations and that we realize that there are neighbors, our community members, who are in need of some kind of help if they want to live that storybook kind of life here in Glen Ellyn.
Well, thank you for adding those thoughts. Lindsay, if you were available, if you could just tell us if there is to be this new development, what would it look like? We've talked about all these different kinds of attainable housing. What would this be for all the different types of people that have talked today to needing attainable housing? What could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for having me. And I think especially thank you to all the folks that were willing to share their personal story. I think that's pretty great, and love to listen to what they had to say. So Full Circle Communities is a nonprofit. We develop, own, and manage a whole range of affordable or attainable types of housing. We serve folks with disabilities. We've developed housing for seniors. We've developed permanent supportive housing that serves one population. We've developed integrated permanent supportive housing. So the work that we do is really responsive to the communities that we're developing in. And I think that's what affordable housing can be, not just from Full Circle, but in general, with good guidance from a municipality and really solid participation from community organizations and community members. Groups like Full Circle can really tailor what they're trying to do to fit into what the community needs. Some of the work is sort of cut out for us if a community is already able to tell us the types of affordable or attainable or permanent supportive housing that they may need. So there's all, as we saw from the slides, it can look like a lot of different things come in all different forms. And I think that's really great. And I think that that's what, any municipality should be striving for, because the idea is really to give folks choice. So some folks, if I take, folks with disabilities, that's such a general term that's covering so many different types of people, but for some folks, one of the gentlemen in a video said he was interested in living with other, maybe a roommate that was similar to him. That should be an option for him. Someone else in a similar, different situation might want to live in a really integrated setting where there's all different types of people all in one development. Someone might feel more comfortable living in a setting with, like a group home setting with 8 or fewer people, whereas some folks might want to live somewhere a little bit bigger and more independently. And all of those different types of housings should be options in any community, honestly. So I'm encouraged that this conversation is happening and that folks are thinking intentionally about the types of affordable housing that could be available. And in the work that Full Circle does, a few of our developments were actually featured in some of the slides. We're able to fit in and do work that kind of runs the gamut. And, I think Glen Ellyn, like any municipality, honestly, is in need of all of those different types of housing. But I just wanted to echo that the idea that one development can serve folks that, seniors and persons with disabilities and families, like that can all be accomplished in one place. One development is only going to be a drop in the bucket. So I hope that, we're thinking bigger and are able to provide even more options, even, scattered throughout the village and the county and the region. But it is possible to, serve folks in a really integrated and diverse setting. And I think something that's important about the work that Full Circle does and other organizations like us, when we're talking about that percentage threshold of what communities need to meet within the state of Illinois, that can be achieved through all different forms of housing that's affordable. Like most of it, honestly, is achieved through the private market, and it's just, apartments that are just naturally occurring affordable housing. But I think it's important to consider that when affordable housing is just naturally occurring, it could go away like this. So all it takes is, the housing squeeze that we're in right now, that could flip a lot of those units from affordable to suddenly not affordable. And something that I think sets aside housing that's intentionally affordable or attainable is that it comes with a long-term guarantee of affordability. So the developments that Full Circle builds with state and federal resources come with a guarantee of affordability. It comes with a deed restriction. And I think that's an important element that every community should consider when they're thinking about addressing their housing issues, because if we're just depending on, just the market as it is, that can change very quickly, I think, as we've all seen over time. So thanks.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Sonia, I see that you had a thought that you wanted to add.
Sure, Dawn, it's not necessarily specific to the question, but continuing on with something what Kelly had also mentioned. So I just wanted to kind of take up on what Clara had said earlier, how the diverse community has economic benefits. Others have also mentioned that, but in general, the overall impact it has on the community in education and the overall well-being. One community which has worked over the last 3 years since we've been here to raise awareness, acceptance, and involvement of diverse community members. I think that is something which Glen Ellyn benefits from here. By the way, one community was the organization which was the proponent behind the Welcoming Community Resolution that Glen Ellyn adopted, and I commend the village for doing so, and also for discussing and raising the need for the Community Relations Commission. So I'm delighted. One community is delighted that those things are happening, and I think I just want to mention that that the sense of inclusion, as we say in the DEI, or the diversity, the equity, to be able to access and the sense of inclusion is critically important to be able to give the diverse community access into Glen Ellyn and to feel a part of that, and the way they enrich and raise the community feeling of any community, and in Glen Ellyn, is not something that one could just measure in economic terms, but in the larger sense of community, which Clara also touched on. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We do have some questions that have come in through chat, and we do want to allow some time, which we're coming up pretty quickly on an hour and a half here. So Amy, I know you've been tracking the questions for us. If you could perhaps read those and start with the first one, and we'll have our panelists answer those.
I sure can. I do see that Julie has her hand raised though, and I just want to make sure that she gets her thought
Julie,
out.
do you
Yes.
something that needs added right now?
Just a quick thing to follow up on something Lindsay brought up, how important it is to have a variety of choices, especially for our people with disabilities. And one thing that also families would want is the ability for their family member to stay within their home, and they would not want them to move out. So the village being very, open to working with families to modify their home to work for that person. The other thing I want to mention is that affordable and supportive are each very important for this population. Funding is really challenging. They have state and federal funding that is, you don't know when it's going to come. They have high unemployment and underemployment, not maybe able to make a living wage, and we can't always count on the support of the family going through their full life. And then the supportive piece is just highly important for them to live their best life in the community.
Great, thank you for those thoughts. All right, Amy, what's the first question?
Yep, so I've got a list of questions here to ask. I just want to tell everybody in our audience that if you do have a question for the panel, you can type it into the chat, and I'm keeping track of all of those. You can also share your thoughts with any of these questions. So the first one is from Erica. She would like to know what recommendations the panelists and audience have to develop a consistent an educational program about affordable and attainable housing for Glen Ellyn residents who may not be aware of this opportunity for our community.
Does anyone have thoughts on that?
I would just say that I think it's maybe another topic for the library to take up. It sounds like it's a really good fit for part 2 of this discussion.
That is a definite possibility. Anyone else? All right, let's move to the next question, Amy.
Okay, so Kim said.
I'm sorry, can I just add one thing to that? I'm sorry, I couldn't find my.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh-oh,
the
yeah, I
button
hate it
thing.
when that happens.
I just wanted to add that once the Community Relations Commission gets going and starts holding meetings, these are open to the public, and as are all commission and board meetings. So for those of you who are interested in more about affordable housing, have ideas that you want to share, want to keep track of how the village is progressing, I would encourage you to attend the Community Relations Commission meetings. Those will be posted on the village's website when they start. We have yet to pick a date and time for all of those, but once it starts happening, I want people to come. So please, please know that you're welcome.
Can I say something as well, real quickly?
Sure, go for it.
DuPage County is June 23rd, DuPage County, as well as our organization, is hosting a housing webinar. So anybody can attend. You would just have to send me a request and I can send you a link. Dawn, if you want me to send you that information, I can send it to you. So they'll be touching on a lot on talking about, you know, the income qualifications and how to set up your rental cafe and look inside your rental cafe to see where you're at on the list. We require documents. So they're going to go over different types of housing, who has a lottery and who doesn't have a lottery. So we'll be going over that on June 23rd. Dawn, I'll send you that information. And if you want to post
Can we push that out to the public, Stephanie?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely send that my way.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on that one? Okay.
One last point, just to follow up on Trustee Christensen, and she is, I agree with her comments, but I would also add to them that our Community Relations Commission is forming, and we are accepting. We would love to see people come to the commission hearings, as Trustee Christensen points out, but that commission is forming. And so if there's anyone interested in volunteering to be on the commission, I would encourage them to go to the village website. There's a location where you could submit an application. And we would love to have, you know, as many people as we can to draw from to staff that commission.
Excellent. I didn't realize we were still looking for applications, so we can help to promote that again as well. All right. Anyone else?
I would add to that, if you don't know how to get started with any of these, or you don't know how to find out how to attend these meetings, you can always contact the library. That's what we're here for. We'll help you figure out how to get started with all of this, let you know when meetings are, and answer any other questions you have.
Thanks, Amy. Do we have another question?
We sure do. Okay, so Kim would like to know, the videos and some of the panelists were talking about how a diverse community, which is made possible because of affordable and accessible housing, makes for relationship building and cultural understanding. And so her question is, how can we as community members, what can we as community members do to create more opportunities for affordable housing?
Well, this is Clara. I'd like to take that question on to begin with. It's important for a community to be a welcoming community. And we have a lot of institutions and a lot of formats within the community that we can spread this word. The library is good. The webinar that Stephanie mentioned is good. Within our own faith-based institutions and within our own neighborhood block, we can be talking to others about this and creating that awareness, because that's really the beginning. And we're also busy in our lives. We need to open our lives to welcome all sorts of diversity and start talking about it.
I think writing your legislators is another thing. Getting, talking to your legislators, finding out who your legislators are within your area and writing them, write, talk to them, get the word out.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to say something. You know, affordable housing just doesn't happen automatically. I mean, definitely left to the marketplace. You know, we've seen what's presently happening by virtue of the new developments in town, which are mainly luxury developments. So I really applaud the village for getting involved in this issue and starting to think about a housing plan. And so my feeling is, you know, these commissions would be a great place, you know, for people to be able to get involved and better understand. I mean, I think the key elements is beginning to start relationships with organizations like Lindsay's organization, because the not-for-profit organizations are going to be the ones that will be able to develop affordable housing. But we just need to continue to build that momentum in those relationships.
Great point. Anyone else? All right, Amy, I believe there's one more question.
Fell trap to the mute. We actually have about 5 more questions.
Oh my, okay.
So yeah, lots of questions coming in. So Chris would like to know, and this is a question for Stephanie, could you please describe your organization's mission and purpose?
Hold on, sorry about that. So our mission, as I told you before, is working with those with disabilities, making sure that they're able to live independently and giving those resources to them, and getting the word out to other communities. So different neighborhoods, libraries. We're here to, you know, help with food pantries as well. Some people right now, especially with COVID, as you can see, people are struggling with getting food. So we give those resources out. We also help those that's, you know, what I do too is I'm the community transition placement advocate. So I help those who get out of facilities back into the community after a severe car accident or, you know, now has a disability or disability, move back into the community, and we help with those resources. We fund housing for them, such as a down payment and helping them, making sure they get back on their feet. So there's a variety of things we do. We also have a youth transition program. So we go into schools and help with IEP meetings with those with disabilities. And we help with resources, housing, parents that, you know, are now, you know, have a child with a disability and they don't have the resources to find help for their children. We help with that as well. So there's a variety of different things that we do. So
great. Thank you for telling us more about your organization's mission. What's next, Amy?
Okay, so this one's from Kim, and the topic is language barriers and accessible housing. So she says that she's a member of St. Mark's Episcopal Church. They have a Spanish language service, which is an important part of their parish. She says language is often a barrier for access to housing, and I see Kelly nodding, also to information on housing and housing rights. So her question is, what can we do to address language barriers in regard to housing?
Who would like to address that question? Dr. Azvar.
So, Dawn, I don't know if everyone knows that how many type of languages our community members speak.
Right.
It's very interesting. So ICNA Relief serve 14 nationalities right here in DuPage County. And our staff speak 8 languages. And, you know, it's very interesting to see that there's so many of our community members, our neighbors are living right here in Glen Ellyn, in DuPage County, and we don't even know about it. So I think first step is to getting awareness, reaching out to organizations like ICNA Relief, Bridge Community, and others which are present here, and talk to them and ask them what's going on really, you know, and what is the need. Like, for example, we have hundreds and hundreds of clients who speak Arabic, and Arab community is not only, you know, Syrians or Palestinians. There are 22 countries, 22 nationalities. So we don't even have that mentioned in our census, you know. So we really need to look from the very, very base. So if you go and find out about how many percentage of community members receive COVID-19 vaccination, you will find out, okay, whites got the vaccine, you know, we have blacks, Latino, and Asians, but Arabs are not even there. So, I mean, the first step is starting from very, very basic, reaching out to your neighbors, reaching out to these grassroots organizations and finding out. And as officials and, you know, those who are working in village, they really need to step up those efforts.
I agree. I think many people in the community don't necessarily realize the wide variety of languages spoken. The staff of the library are aware. We work closely with the schools and they give us a list of the popular languages. But we noticed even during COVID, when we were open, we were playing recorded messages in the top languages that are you know, that according to our schools. And we had some people that were asking us why we were doing that and telling us that no one here speaks those languages. Why? And that's not the case. So there's definitely an awareness issue out there. And it's something that we here at the library continue to work on. And the great thing now is with technology, there's, you know, different technologies out there. We are actually beta testing a device where someone can speak to it in a language and then it'll translate for us. And so we're really hopeful that some of those kind of technologies, you know, will continue to help us to be able to serve these individuals in our communities that do speak other languages. So thank you so much for sharing that. All right, what's the next question, Amy?
I'm a victim of the mute button today. So the next question is from Erica, and it's on the topic of housing safety and building codes. So her question is, does Glen Ellyn review and assess for habitability with the identified affordable housing in Glen Ellyn? And her example is the Main Street apartments in the block with Fire and Wine on one end and Blackberry Market on the other end may not be identified affordable housing, but in fact are housing for lower income residents. And as a note, she adds that she's been in several of these apartments and have noticed that they need significant repairs to plumbing, mold remediation, painting, and more.
So President Senek and Trustee Christensen, is that something that you would be prepared to talk about today, or is that something that perhaps you could follow up with outside of this conversation?
Well, with respect, I would like to follow up certainly outside the conversation if there is any instances where the housing in Glen Ellyn is not meeting the code requirements. Certainly we want to know about that and we want to get that corrected across the village. With respect to affordable housing, from a code standpoint, it's no different than any other housing. It will comply with the building codes that are in existence, and hopefully that will ensure that the quality of any affordable housing is consistent with all the other housing in Glen Ellyn. You know, I had the pleasure of touring the 1212 Larkin site that Full Circle developed, and anyone who has not taken that trip should really go up to Elgin and take a look at it. And when you see it, what you'll realize is that the quality of the construction, both from a design and materials standpoint, it frankly would exceed any of the building code requirements in Glen Ellyn. And consequently, I think the quality of the affordable housing development that we're contemplating will be beyond what is just the code requirement. And again, the code for me is really just the floor. We need to get above that floor and really provide not only affordable housing, but quality affordable housing.
Excellent, thank you. Amy, what else do we have?
Okay, the next question is from Kristen. She wants to know if there's a plan to create an awareness campaign to let people in Glen Ellyn know that we're working on this issue, and whether the new community relations commission?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. She adds that she feels it's important to let the community know what work is going on in Glen Ellyn.
Well, I can say that we're always looking for ways to communicate with people through a variety of avenues. And it seems like every few years, right, everybody who's running for trustee mentions the need for improved communications. We do have, and it's always true, right, that we're always looking for better ways to reach the residents of Glen Ellyn so that they understand what's happening. So, you know, you will find information in your water bill. You will find the print newsletter that comes out quarterly. There are weekly notifications that you can sign up for, including an e-newsletter. You can sign up to be notified for news about the comprehensive plan, about new developments, and so on and so forth. So some of it is outreach, some of it is opt-in communications. As we go, as I say, go forward with the community relations commissions, obviously those meetings will be public. The schedule for those meetings and all commission meetings are on the village's website. And oh gosh, I was just going to say something and I completely blanked. So some of that is, you know, we need help from the community to sort of help spread the word. You know, it's obviously we put notifications on the board in downtown Glen Ellyn, but if you live south of Roosevelt, you may not be seeing that. So we welcome ideas for further communication. And I do want to note that I believe our village board meetings, they are put on radio and public access, and at least one of those has Spanish language, if I'm not mistaken. But I would encourage people to share their ideas for communicating with us, because it's very hard to reach everyone where they are.
Mm-hmm.
If I could just follow up on those comments. One of the intents of the Community Relations Commission is that it be the point of contact for residents who want to provide the village with their thoughts, their input, their experiences. You know, up to this point, there may not have been a clear place for someone who had a concern to go and to express it, but the Community Relations Commission will now be that location. And with the intent that that commission is really the eyes and ears of the board, they will then have a direct link to the board so that resident comments that come into community relations can then be discussed at the commission level, with the hope that from that recommendations would be made to the board to address any of the concerns that are brought to the commission by the residents.
Thank you. Amy, what's next?
I would add to that, you know, one of the things that came out of this DEI initiative that we did, or, you know, the community conversations earlier in the year, is the library is really committed to prioritizing DEI programming and understanding the dynamics of our community. So if you get our guide, our event mailer that comes out quarterly, you'll see tons of programs coming up on everything from race relations and, you know, AAPI initiatives in Glen Ellyn to affordable housing to a number of other things. So watch for that. The next question is from Amy. She's wondering about housing density as it relates to property taxes. And so her question is, could anyone on the panel comment on questions regarding costs of additional density in the community and goals, and how goals can be achieved without additional property taxes? Taxes are a real struggle for many residents here. I am not opposed to initiatives, but would like some discussion of potential costs along with benefits.
Who would like to take that question?
You first, Kelly.
All right, well, yes, that is an excellent question, because everything comes with the cost, whether it's intangible or tangible, and no one likes to pay taxes, right? And we certainly don't like to see our taxes go up. So that is a sort of a cost benefit analysis that we will have to make, certainly at the village board level, when we're looking at For instance, just our regular budget, which we of course do every year. And then as we look at developments that come in town or wish to come in town in terms of what incentives we might be able to offer, what grant monies might be available. So we do need to make sure that we're looking at all sorts of funding resources because we do want to make this happen in a way that doesn't causes trouble for people, right, in terms of finances. So I'm speaking from my perspective. President Senek might have some other feedback on that, but obviously we need to look at ways to either increase revenues or cut services if we wish to add new things to the budget. So it's always food for thought.
So I'll follow up with the following, which is of the 47 municipalities that were surveyed in DuPage County, Glen Ellyn is 32nd in tax rate, meaning we are 32 out of 47 in the lowest municipal tax rate. So we have done, I think, a good job to try to ensure that the taxes for the residents in the village, at least from the taxes that the village imposes, that those taxes have continued to be contained. With respect to affordable housing, by way of some illustration, we have two districts, TIF districts, tax incremental financing districts in the village, one downtown, one out on Roosevelt Road. And what we have been discussing with Full Circle is the concept of using TIF dollars to finance affordable housing projects so that the impact of that would not be felt by the residents in the form of higher property taxes. And that TIF financing, keep in mind, not only provides the ability for groups like Full Circle to construct the development, but over time, the property tax revenue that's generated from those developments will then repay, if you will, the TIF fund for purposes of ensuring that that fund produces taxes. So there is a mechanism that we have available to us that would allow us to use our TIF district financing to leverage a new affordable housing development project in the village. But then long-term, that development will effectively repay that loan as well as provide additional tax above and beyond that.
Yeah, and I can just add, based on what Full Circle develops specifically, we are leveraging the vast majority of our financing not from local municipalities. We're usually, if a local municipality has a program that we can use to finance a tiny portion of what we're trying to develop, it's great. It's certainly an advantage. But we look at that contribution from municipality as something that we're going to take in leverage like 40 times over by the other existing resources that are out there. I like to think of it as someone is going to get this money that's available from the state to develop affordable housing. So why not have that money flow into, Glen Ellyn, for instance? Like, it's going to go somewhere. So any financial participation that a municipality can bring to the table just helps unlock funds that are going to go somewhere. And, I think for us, the most important thing, and our developments do pay property taxes, but the most important thing for us, I think, is openness in a community and, willingness of different groups and voices coming to the table to participate.
Well, thank you for that. The next question from Roger is, have there been failed efforts for getting attainable housing in GE? At first read, I think that could sound like an individual trying to get it, but the second part of the question is, why did they fail? So I think what Roger was getting at is, have there been failed efforts for creating more attainable housing in Glen Ellyn? And Roger, if I misread that, I'm sorry. Does anyone know of any failed efforts to add additional attainable housing in Glen Ellyn?
I do not. But the issue of what is a failed development I don't know of any that have started and not succeeded, but failure to some degree is not starting. And we haven't really started. And so if you measure that, or if you use that as the criteria, you know, we have failed to really develop an affordable housing initiative in Glen Ellyn. And I think to a large degree, the cause for that is there has been a lack of partnership amongst private development, municipal government in Glen Ellyn, and some of the other social service groups who are going to support that. But we are overcoming that. We are putting those pieces together now. And I think from what I see, they're coming together nicely. And hopefully the project that is on the drawing board, I have every expectation that it'll come to fruition sometime in the next 2 or 3 years.
Excellent. The next thing is actually a suggestion, and Erica is suggesting that when the next village trustee meeting that has affordable attainable housing on the agenda, that perhaps we could show the video interviews from this meeting, that she feels that they're really moving. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Next up, a question specifically looks like from Kristen from Mark. Did the building of the Avere project provide a portion of their units, luxury housing, to be affordable?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe the answer is no. And that was a missed opportunity, frankly. But we did learn from that a little bit. The McChesney development that is coming will include 2 or 3 units of affordable housing, and the village provided incentives to the developer so that they could devote those units to an affordable housing kind of rent. But you know, those 2 or 3 units, that is really a drop in the bucket. And while we are pointed in the right direction in the sense that future developments, I think, are going to be called upon to provide affordable housing within the developments in the downtown, we've also then taken, you know, that lesson and tried to apply it with Full Circle to create more larger number of units that would fit within the definition of affordable housing. So we're learning and we're doing some things based on the knowledge that we gain in this process. And hopefully we won't miss any other opportunities in the future to do that.
Follow-up question to that, is there still an opportunity to work with Avere to add affordable units?
I don't know the answer to that, but certainly that's a question that needs to be asked. Given that that development has already been constructed, I think the likelihood of that is low. By the same token, we have a number of developments that are in the planning and design phase, and those are the opportunities in which we can have a meaningful impact on persuading the developers to devote a number of the units to affordable housing.
Great, thank you. Looks like we've got one last question, and then I'll give you each an opportunity if you've got something you'd like to add. And this last question is, could Lindsay tell us a little bit more about Full Circle's long-term commitment to their properties, such as what happens after the property's built? Do you leave, or is Full Circle still involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Full Circle is not only a developer, but we own our properties. The goal is in perpetuity, and we all are also the property manager. So our involvement is quite heavy from beginning through the life of the development, which I think is quite important to success. We also bring a special element to the table in that we, as part of our mission, set aside 75% of all the economics that we earn on each development. And we partner with another nonprofit local agency to provide supportive services for our tenants. So those services are really specific to not only the development that we're building, the population we're serving, but also to each individual tenant. And oftentimes some of our tenants come with their own supports. And so we work to make sure we're integrating those together. But we're an invested long-term owner. We always have an on-site property manager and maintenance technician, and then the on-site supportive service staff that I mentioned. So we don't just develop our property and then kind of never see anyone again. And oftentimes our hope is that our first development in a place is going to lead to more. So we're a regional organization, but we really strive to kind of develop in nodes and sort of work off of the existing partnerships that we gain on a development, because we always know that more is needed. And when we, you know, our 1212 Larkin development in Elgin, we have 48 units, but had nearly 600 people apply for them. So we always see, you know, like we want to go out and do the next development to try and scratch the surface on all of that demand.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. So at this point, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Our panel, our audience has really stuck with us. We've only lost a couple along the way, but I'd like to ask our panelists if you have any final comments or a takeaway that you'd like to share with our audience. And if so, just go ahead and we'll try to go one at a time.
So I'll lead off. You know, I think that the takeaway for me is no one can do it alone. We all really need to work together. And I think we have that sort of team in place at this stage. Dawn and, you know, Amy, at the, your efforts in just educating the residents and the community about the need for affordable housing is the first step. You know, we need to have the community be supportive. And the library has done a spectacular job of leading that charge, both in the DEI initiative and now the extension of that into the affordable housing programs that you're offering. But, you know, we also need other participants, and, you know, we've received that support from DuPage United, from One Community, from Full Circle. And so I'm very optimistic that what we have now is a group that is like-minded and has a clear goal that is out there. We've reached out to our state and federal representatives. We had a meeting with Representative Kasten's office, and it appears that they are supportive of this effort, and that's critical to obtaining access to grant funding to help Full Circle, you know, finance this effort, because as Lindsay points out, the funding for this comes from a variety of different sources. We've had good responses from our state representatives, Tara Costa Howard and Susie Glowiak, and from our county board members, Mary Ozog, Lynn LaPlante, Grant Eckhoff. And so I think we all see that this is a need and that we can accomplish this. And I'm hopeful that if we're able to do this in Glen Ellyn, and to Lindsay's point, which is, you know, the number of units that we can put into the market in Glen Ellyn is really somewhat of a drop in the bucket. But the hope is that once we are able to do that and show that we can do that in partnership with municipal government, private, you know, developers and community groups, that will encourage other communities to make that step too. And hopefully that will create, you know, sort of debunk some of the myths of affordable housing that have been an impediment to, you know, providing affordable housing throughout the county. So I'm hopeful that Glen Ellyn will actually sort of lead that charge a little bit and will encourage other communities to follow, you know, in our steps.
Well, thank you for that. Dr. Azvar, I believe you had a comment you wanted to make.
Yes, Dawn, just quickly that, you know, we know many families who their lives are completely changed because they reach to this level of finding affordable housing. ICNA Relief serves so many of those community members who are living in very, very desperate situation, very extremely low to very low income households. And there are refugees who are, and imagine this desperate situations that these refugees and immigrants, they have to leave their entire lives behind, and they have to start fresh in a foreign land, and speak a foreign language, and learn everything from A to Z. And then we are asking them to afford health insurance, medical expenses, car and public transit cost, food and other necessities. This is incredibly difficult when so much of a household's paycheck goes towards rent. So in these situations, rent truly becomes a burden. and it prevents family from long-term planning and becoming financially stable. So like Forkia, which you saw in the video, we know many families who finally have access to affordable housing and completely change their ability to rebuild their lives and give back to the community.
I think that was a theme that we saw, in the videos, was that we get back, if we can provide this housing, our community, gains things that are priceless, if we can help to do that. So thank you so much for sharing those comments. So at this point in time, I did want to let our audience know there is a reading list of resources available, because that's the librarian in me, at geppel.beanstack.org, specifically on affordable, attainable housing. So if you are interested in doing some more reading, there's some links to things that are available online, as well as, of course, books that the library owns. And if you need any help finding that, feel free to call the library. We'll help you with that. There will be a recording of this session that will be made available on our website as well. So perhaps you have friends, colleagues, people that you know that you think could really benefit from some of the great things that we've heard today. You'll be able to direct them to that link so that they can share in this program. And of course, I have to let you know about another program that's coming up that I think you might be interested in. On June 23rd at 7 p.m., we have a program about World Relief. We are actually partnering with World Relief this year for our summer reading program. And in doing so, we have found that there's a lot of people that don't know about World Relief and don't know about the great work that they do. So this program will explain World Relief's mission and how you can help refugee and immigrant neighbors in our community to feel more welcome. And it'll be one of the members of their volunteer mobilization team that will be putting on that program for us. So again, if you have any questions, you can give us a call. I'd like to say a huge thank you to our panelists, some of which had to depart already because we've gone for as long as we have. I have learned so much working with you and during today's program, and I'm sure our attendees have as well. Thank you to those of you who have come out and listened and enjoyed our program, hopefully today for 2 hours, which I think shows you that there's a lot to be said on this topic. So thanks to everyone. And I'd ask that you all tell you thank you and enjoy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth, everyone. Have a great day.
Great, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.